So I want you to imagine for a second that you're in a really high stakes race.
Okay.
And right behind you, like literally breathing down your neck, is death itself.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is intense.
Right. Just waiting to claim you the second you stumble. So if I asked you right now, do you have your bags packed? Do you know exactly where you are running to?
I mean, most people would definitely say no.
Exactly. But an author named Yufeng believes that if your answer isn't just a confident, immediate yes, then you are fundamentally wasting your life.
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches.
No, not at all. So today we are taking a deep dive into this deeply radical, pretty uncomfortable spiritual survival guide that he wrote. It's called Let the Unmotivated Fend for Themselves.
And it really is a survival guide in his eyes.
Hmm.
I mean, the core premise of this essay is that human life on Earth, it isn't supposed to be a permanent settlement.
Right, it's more like a transit lounge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is an urgent transit period.
Yep.
Zhu argues that without a singular, focused destination, which he calls the heavenly kingdom, we're just, wandering.
And he says this heavenly kingdom is governed by the greatest creator, right? That's his term for the ultimate cosmic source.
Yes. And without aiming for that, he says we are stuck in this ghostly cycle of confusion. Like, we aren't really living. We were just pacing back and forth in a maze.
It's just a fascinating framework to unpack because, well, it is so uncompromising. And just to be clear for everyone listening as we go through this, the goal here isn't to tell you to, like, drop everything and adopt this highly specific worldview.
Right. We're not taking sides or endorsing it.
Exactly. We are just exploring the mechanics of this philosophy impartially, because the way it challenges conventional wisdom, it really forces a complete reevaluation of what we consider important.
Yeah, because the author doesn't just suggest we find, a hobby or a general sense of purpose.
No, it's a demand for immediate preparation for departure. And he uses these surprisingly bureaucratic metaphors, which I found so
Textual
brilliant.
language is incredibly administrative.
Yeah.
Like, he insists that travelers must secure their passports, their visas, tickets, luggage for the heavenly kingdom.
Passports for heaven.
Yeah, and simultaneously resolve all earthly debts.
Yeah.
Every single loose end has to be tied up right now.
Okay, let's unpack this because it feels like being at an airport when your final boarding call is announced over the loudspeaker, but you're sitting at the gate trying to finish your taxes.
That is a great way to put it. You can't do both.
Right. You have to drop the paperwork and get on the plane. But I have to ask, why the sudden rush? Like, this extreme urgency almost sounds like a defense mechanism.
How do you mean?
Like, if you convince yourself time is perpetually running out, you don't really have to deal with the messy, mundane realities of just being human.
Well, the author would actually argue that the mundane reality is the ultimate distraction from actual survival.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In this framework, time is the ultimate scarce resource. He actually quotes an old saying, 10,000 years are too long. We must seize the moment.
Wow.
The underlying belief here is that catastrophic, unexpected events can happen at literally any second.
And he gives a pretty modern example of this, right?
He does. To illustrate this, the text points to a time when the author's own online spiritual community, which is known as the Life Genuine, had its website suddenly blocked.
Like a literal 404 error acting as a spiritual warning sign.
Exactly. It really grounds these massive cosmic stakes in a relatable, frustrating modern experience.
Because people assume they have plenty of time.
Right. They think, oh, I can simply log on tomorrow to access these teachings or better my life. But suddenly the server is down.
The access is revoked.
Yeah, and the author uses this sudden digital blackout as literal proof that the window of opportunity can just snap shut without warning, and those who delay will find the door locked.
And the text warns that at that point, any cries of remorse are, well, they're entirely futile.
Exactly.
So, okay, if you are sprinting toward this spiritual destination with the fear of the door slamming shut, carrying extra weight obviously becomes a massive liability. The text says every traveler starts out bearing a heavy burden and needs protection. So the proposed solution is to don what he calls the light armor crafted by Christ Jesus and Buddha Shakyamuni.
It is such a striking image. Because the teachings of these historical spiritual figures,
Yeah.
they aren't presented as heavy theological real books that weigh you down.
Right, they're not burdens.
No, they are lightweight protection. They shield you from the hazards of the journey without slowing your momentum.
But, and this is a big but, to fit into this armor and truly travel light, the traveler has to systematically drop what the text calls worldly trivialities.
Yeah, and this is where the philosophy is going to clash really hard with the average listener's life.
Oh, absolutely, because his definition of worldly trivialities includes birth, getting an education, working, getting married, raising children, and aging.
Yeah, he lumps those everyday milestones right alongside the unending conflicts of nations, religions, and global power struggles.
Wait, okay. If having a family, raising kids, or just pursuing an education is considered a trivial trap, how does human society even function?
Well, that's the thing.
Like, how is the listener supposed to function if they view everyday life as a trap? Because if everyone adopts this mindset, society simply collapses.
What's fascinating here is that the text doesn't concern itself with the survival or functioning of human society as we know it.
At all.
Not at all. It operates on a remarkably strict binary worldview. There are only two categories of existence. You have the living and the dead.
Okay, break that down for me.
So the living are strictly defined as those actively walking the path toward the greatest creator.
And the dead.
Anyone who strays from this path to focus on earthly matters. No matter how socially successful, wealthy, or domestically happy they might be, they are categorized as dead.
So your coworker, your neighbor, your family members, if they are invested in that cycle of education, career, and family planning, this text views them as dead weight.
Literally as ghosts. The text describes those caught in the worldly cycle as ghosts, pulling the living down into an abyss of suffering. And to justify this really severe detachment, the author invokes a teaching from Jesus. Let the dead handle their own matters. We are responsible only for the living.
Right.
So entangling yourself in the labyrinth of worldly milestones just means choosing to wander in a maze rather than heading to the exit.
Okay, so once you accept that you are in a labyrinth, I guess the natural next step is to critically examine who is in the maze with you.
Yes, and more specifically, who is actively holding you back.
Right. And the author points a finger directly at a group of people he labels the undeserving or the unmotivated. And the list of grievances against these people is incredibly specific.
Oh, highly specific. The text paints a portrait of individuals who are fundamentally chronically dissatisfied with reality.
Right, they complain about everything.
Yeah, they're described as lazy yet insatiably greedy. They constantly calculate their own personal gains and losses, and they just grumble constantly without any real cause.
Like complaining about the weather.
Exactly. If it rains, they are troubled. If the wind blows, they are bothered. They complain about the cold and then immediately turn around and complain about the heat.
They sound like the ultimate energy vampires.
They really do.
And the author used this brilliant analogy here. He says, offer them tea, they want coffee.
Right.
Offer them coffee, they demand wine. Offer them wine, they want mineral water.
It's just an endless moving of the goalposts where nothing is ever sufficient.
Yeah, they feign illness to extract sympathy and cry hunger when their bellies are completely full. But I mean, this feels like a massive departure from traditional spiritual teachings.
How so?
Well, usually the enlightened person is supposed to, reach back and pull the struggling person up. But here, the instruction is basically to cut the rope.
Yeah, compassion takes on a very different, almost ruthless definition within this framework.
Right.
Indulging these energy vampires is not viewed as an act of kindness. It is categorized as a fatal delay.
Because the clock is ticking.
Exactly. The window to the heavenly kingdom is closing. Death is behind you. If you stop to carry someone who has perfectly capable legs of their own, or waste precious minutes trying to satisfy someone who will always demand wine when you offer coffee, both of you are going to lose the race.
So leaving them behind isn't framed as malice. It is framed as a structural necessity for survival.
Precisely. The text dictates that letting the unmotivated fend for themselves is the only way to ensure your own forward movement.
Because they'll just drag you down.
Right. A slight headache makes these individuals wail. A minor setback fills them with resentment. The author is making this harsh calculation. You cannot save them, but their endless demands can absolutely doom you.
So the traveler has packed their bags, strapped on the light armor, and walked away from the complainers demanding mineral water.
Right.
But the text argues the traveler is still too heavy, because the heaviest baggage slowing us down isn't the people around us.
No, it's not.
It is the attachments inside our own heads.
And this is where the text transitions from a social critique into really deep psychological instruction. The author breaks down humanity into a 5-tier classification system to explain exactly why we get so bogged down by our own internal lives.
Okay, walk us through these 5 tiers. What are we looking at?
So it's a hierarchy based entirely on what drives a person's behavior.
Yeah.
At the very bottom, you have those driven by basic instincts. The text calls them ignorant.
Okay, makes sense.
Moving up one level, you find those driven by desires. They're labeled as worldly.
Got it.
Then the third tier, which is where the vast majority of humanity sits, consists of people driven by emotions. They are the mortals.
The mortals.
Right. Then the fourth tier is driven by reason, the virtuous. And finally, the highest tier is driven by spirituality, the celestial.
Okay, so the author zeroes right in on that middle tier, the mortals.
He does.
The text states bluntly that emotional attachments define mortals. But we aren't talking about, like, pure joy or transcendent love here.
Yeah, not at all.
We're talking about the sticky, messy, and tangled emotions that keep us up at night.
Yeah, the author actually refers to these mortal emotional attachments as illusions. He describes them almost like tumors on the soul.
Wow. Tumors.
Yeah, they are the mechanism that causes us to get bogged down in trivial disputes, meaningless grievances, exhausting interpersonal conflicts. According to the text, these mortal emotions actively drain your energy, block your path to enlightenment, and just warp your spirit.
You know, it makes me think of running a poorly coded background app on your smartphone.
Oh, a good analogy.
Like, you might not actively be looking at it, but it is silently draining your battery down to zero, leaving you with absolutely no power for the things you actually need to do.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for our day-to-day lives? Like, how does the author suggest we handle these emotional tumors?
By decisively and permanently discarding them.
Just throwing them out.
Yeah. The author provides a metaphor for detachment that is incredibly stark. He says, if an egg breaks, there's no use lamenting. If a jade sculpture shatters, there's no need to mend it. Let what is lost remain lost, and let what is dead stay dead.
If a jade sculpture shatters, there's no need to mend it. I mean, that line radically opposes almost every instinct of modern culture.
It really does.
Because we live in an era entirely obsessed with fixing things. If a relationship breaks, we go to therapy to fix it. If we experience a trauma or a grievance, we spend years processing it to fix it. We are obsessed with kneeling on the floor trying to glue the shattered jade back together.
And we spend immense amounts of emotional energy trying to reassemble those pieces, often cutting our own hands in the process.
Right.
The author views this impulse to achieve, closure or to fix the shattered jade as the very definition of mortal emotion. It is a trap.
It just keeps you stuck.
Exactly. It keeps your eyes pointed at the floor, obsessing over broken fragments, instead of looking up at the destination ahead. The text notes the universe is vast, and homes can be found everywhere. Embracing freedom requires leaving the pieces on the floor.
But, I mean, if someone actually manages to throw away all these mortal emotions, don't they just become a cold, unfeeling robot racing toward a finish line?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah, there has to be something fueling the traveler that isn't just, like, pure panic.
Well, the text actually anticipates that concern. It contrasts the exhausting drain of mortal emotion with a higher state called heavenly affection.
Okay.
And the primary difference between the two is basically a test of vitality.
How does that vitality test work in practice? Like, how do I know which one I'm feeling?
So heavenly affection fills you with hope, energy, and constant happiness. It inspires forward momentum. But most importantly, it doesn't demand your sympathy.
Right.
It doesn't make you worry day and night. It doesn't make you lose your appetite. And it doesn't torment your spirit.
So it's basically asking, is this feeling giving me energy, or is it asking to be carried?
Exactly. If a relationship, a memory, or a feeling is draining you, if it requires you to carry it, it is a mortal emotion. If it naturally energizes you and makes you feel limitless, it is heavenly affection. And that is the only type of connection you are supposed to pursue.
That is a brutally efficient litmus test for your emotional life.
It is.
But okay, so if you manage to apply this test, right, you're cutting out the worldly trivialities, you're leaving the complainers behind, dropping the shattered jade, and filtering out draining emotions.
Yeah.
Who is actually left to travel with? Because honestly, this sounds like an incredibly lonely sprint.
Well, it isn't meant to be a solitary journey, but it is highly exclusive.
Okay.
The final instruction in the text is about actively choosing your companions. The author is incredibly direct here. He says, do not linger with the weak, the defeated, or the muddled thinkers. Do not waste time on people who whine and accomplish nothing.
Because they will eventually convince you to stop and complain with them.
Precisely. Instead, the author commands the reader to seek out a very specific type of companion. You must seek the company of the energetic, the healthy, and those bold enough to challenge limits.
So soaring with the great ones?
Yeah, you should strive to travel alongside great individuals. And the text wraps this concept up with one final, very memorable analogy. He says, fly with geese and you become a goose. Stay with sparrows and you are a sparrow.
Oh, wow. I love that. It captures the contagion of our environment perfectly.
It really does.
Because human beings inevitably absorb the energy and the pacing of the people around them. Like if you surround yourself with sparrows birds that just kind of flutter about close to the ground, concerning themselves with the trivialities of the immediate bushes and the maize well, you will stay close to the ground.
But if you fly with the geese, you are joining creatures that embark on massive, purposeful migrations across entire continents.
Right, they fly in a V formation.
Yeah, they have a clear destination. By joining that flock, you absorb their forward momentum. Because life in this framework is painfully short and the clock is ticking, choosing your flock is not about networking or social preference.
It's life or death.
It is the ultimate act of spiritual survival. You simply cannot afford to waste your limited time trying to teach a sparrow how to migrate. You have to find the geese.
Man, this has been an intense and really unyielding journey through the source material.
Definitely.
We have unpacked Shuofeng's striking framework. We are in a high-stakes race against time with the door threatening to slam shut.
Right.
We must get our spiritual passports in order and put on the light armor of Jesus and Buddha. We have to boldly walk away from the energy vampires demanding wine when offered coffee.
Yeah.
We must stop trying to glue our broken emotional attachments back together. And finally, we have to choose to fly with the migrating geese.
It is just a profound challenge to the default settings of daily life. It demands a ruthless, continuous evaluation of what you're carrying, who you are walking with, and where you are actually heading.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on as you go about the rest of your week.
Absolutely.
Take a hard look at your own life right now. Look at your calendar, your relationships, your recurring worries. Are you currently spending your precious time and energy trying to glue back together a shattered piece of jade? Maybe it's a career goal that already failed, a grievance from 5 years ago, or an emotional attachment that acts like a background app, just draining your battery down to zero. Whatever that shattered jade is for you, well, what would happen if you just left the pieces on the floor, turned around, and finally caught your flight?